We talked earlier about Mike Pence being in South Korea. That's just the first stop of this 10-day trip through the Asia-Pacific region that he's on. He's also going to be traveling to Japan, to Australia, and Indonesia. And when he gets beyond South Korea, there's going to be a lot of focus in the region about what the Trump administration's policy toward Asia is beyond this tough talk toward Pyongyang. When Obama was president, he really made a pivot to Asia, an economic focus on Asia, a central part of his foreign policy. And we've seen Trump take some steps to try to reverse that, notably pulling the U.S. out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership Pact. So there's going to be a lot of questions for Pence about what the broader U.S. policy is when it comes to economics, get beyond some of this military talk, and tell us what you're going to do about the financial situation here.
Be interesting to see if he has the answers. Manu?
John, the North Dakota Senate race is going to be one of the most important in the country next year. It's where Democrat Heidi Heitkamp will be fighting to cling on to her seat in the state that Donald Trump won overwhelmingly. But on the Republican side, there have been problems on the recruiting front, namely because of Congressman Kevin Cramer, who's the North Dakota congressman who actually represents the whole state as the congressman from that sparsely populated state. He has said a number of things that have unnerved Republican leaders, most recently defending Sean Spicer in the aftermath of those widely criticized comments about Hitler and the Holocaust. And now Republican leaders are trying to pivot and look for a new candidate. They're looking for a wealthy self-funder, a state senator by the name of Tom Campbell, whose political advisor tells me that he's building a statewide organization preparing to possibly run for either the House or the Senate. I asked Kevin Cramer about that. He said that it's not going to deter him to make a decision on whether to run. And he also criticized Washington elites for saying they don't know what North Dakotans actually think like he does.
Yeah, until he needs their money, he'll criticize them. Jonathan?
Well, when he was talking about 2018, I'm talking about this Tuesday, the short term. All eyes are on Georgia. That's where the House special election to replace Tom Price, the Health Secretary, is taking place. Now, all eyes there are on Jon Ossoff, who's the Democrat. And the reason for that is because he is running against a fractured GOP field. And the big question is, can Ossoff, this Democrat, get 50% of the vote? If he does, he wins outright and averts a runoff that would be in June. That's what Democrats are hoping for. Now, he's been polling about 40%, a little bit higher recently, but I'm told last week Democrats had a poll in the field that had him at 46. So he's inching closer to that magic number. But, John, as you know, in this kind of scenario, close doesn't count.
Right.
And if he's not at 50, he's looking at a 2-month runoff where he's going to take a lot of artillery from the GOP. So Democrats want to get him to 50. He's getting close. We're just not sure if he's there. And to employ one of the oldest cliches, John, it comes down to, guess what? Turnout.
And we'll be up Tuesday night.
What does that field actually look like? Is it going to be more of a Democratic turnout, or is it going to be more of a traditional turnout? That's what we're watching.
Well, we'll be up Tuesday night late watching that. Abby?
Well, Ivanka Trump is heading to Germany toward the end of this month on the invitation of German Chancellor Angela Merkel, who was in Washington not too long ago and didn't have the best meeting with President Trump. But what we're seeing here from Germany and also from other countries like China and Japan, they are back-channeling not just to Jared Kushner, but also to Ivanka, and through Ivanka and her family, her children as well. This trip is going to be about soft power. It's going to be something that you don't really hear much from Jared or from Rex Tillerson, who focus very much on American strength. Ivanka has an opportunity here to potentially build some bridges in Europe, in particular, where a lot of world leaders over there are very skeptical of this administration. They want to see this side of America focusing on women and also on American values.
All in the family. I'll close with this, a big agenda question the president will need to settle in the very near future. Some in the White House want to move quickly to a sweeping tax reform proposal and then wait a bit before pushing Congress to act on the giant infrastructure investments the president promised back in the campaign last year. But others in the White House think combining tax reform and infrastructure into a mega initiative is the way to go, believing jobs-creating spending could help win some Democratic votes, even if the tax portion includes items opposed by the left. It's a big choice because House Republicans are well along with their own tax reform proposal and are eager to get it moving, both because it's been a top priority for a long time and to help heal some of the wounds of that Obamacare repeal effort, which we all know went off the tracks. So the choice for the president, stick with the Republican agenda as scripted or try to shake things up. We'll keep an eye on that. That's it for Inside Politics. Again, thanks for sharing your Sunday morning.